Good afternoon and welcome to my channel. Got another story for you today. This is the 29th in the sequence. And the 5 words that have been randomly selected to inspire the story and to be included in it are... And the story is called Dinner is Served. It began with the party wall disagreement. The shared fence between numbers 28 and 30 Walnut Grove was to be replaced, for 3/4 of its length, with a red brick wall that would form part of the Hendersons' kitchen diner extension. From the top of this wall, a sloping roof of glass and steel would extend to meet the Hendersons' existing kitchen, which protruded 12 feet from the back of their 3-bed maisonette. The result would be an L-shaped space with a dining area big enough to entertain a dozen guests. The Hendersons had hired a rather pricey architect, but when they saw the plans, they realised they would get their money's worth. It would add real value to their property. Unfortunately, the Bradleys next door saw it rather differently. They complained that the extension would block out their morning sunlight and that replacing the slatted wooden fence, through which light filtered, with a harsh brick wall would make their garden a lot darker. When Emma Bradley pointed out that the wall was actually 8 inches lower than the fence it was replacing, and demonstrated using her intimate knowledge of geometry that this would result in an 8% increase in the amount of daylight her neighbours would receive, they were not impressed. The Bradleys, a couple in their 60s, simply seemed to add it to the list of petty grievances they had against their younger neighbours. Emma, a 38-year-old maths teacher, and her husband Chris, a personal trainer, had been on the receiving end of numerous over-the-fence complaints. These included diatribes concerning the bramble bushes that apparently protruded through the fence into the Bradleys' domain, and the stray tennis balls that Emma's nephews had hit over the fence, 3 balls on 2 occasions over a 5-year period. The crab apples which had fallen from overhanging branches into the Bradleys' precious lawn, and most recently the sight of Emma breastfeeding her newborn Benjamin while sitting out on the bench at the top of their sloping garden. Apparently this was indecent and had destroyed their neighbour's peace of mind. When Chris heard this, he'd wanted to march round there and give the old fogies hell, but Emma had come up with a better plan. She would disarm them with her cooking. "What?" Chris said, dumbfounded. "A dinner party. They're so utterly middle class they won't be able to refuse. You want to reward them for being total shits?" Emma shook her head. "I want to give them exactly what they deserve. Trust me." Tom, used to Emma's cunning plans, which generally worked out for the best, shrugged and headed off to restring his guitar. He was working his way through a Led Zeppelin songbook, and the changes in the Song Remains the Same were brutal. As Emma had suspected, the Bradleys, Margaret and Tom, were taken aback, forced by convention to awkwardly accept Emma's invitation. When the fateful day came, a Sunday evening, Emma had spent all day preparing. 3 courses with lots of surprises. Benji went to bed uncharacteristically quietly and on time and slept like an angel. To give them their due, Margaret and Tom turned up perfectly on time at 6 p.m. They had dressed like they were attending a church Thanksgiving service. Chris, remarkably, had found a shirt to wear, although he hadn't ironed it, and even rolled down his sleeves to cover the tattoos. He had also made a Spotify playlist of soft rock, 10cc and Air Supply and Neil Diamond. A delicious, cheesy smell wafted from the expanded kitchen diner as Chris hung up the Bradleys' coats and led them through to the controversial extension. "Oh, it does look nice," Margaret said, thin-lipped. Tom just harumphed a token agreement. They took their seats. "We begin," said Emma, as all good dinner parties do, with a signature starter, green leaf and cheese parcels. She brought the phyllo parcels out sizzling on a foil platter, and everyone helped themselves. Margaret made the requisite cooing noises, while Tom bit straight in and burnt his mouth. "The greens are interesting," said Margaret. Emma smiled. "They're from our garden." Margaret nodded. "Quite nutty," she said, extracting a stem from between her front teeth. Tom wolfed down his parcel and smiled roundly. "Good cheese, that. Where'd you get it?" "Local producer," Emma said. "I'll tell you later." The main course for Tom and Margaret were 2 pepper steaks, served with an unusual type of broccoli in a white wine sauce, a slightly too gritty red pepper seasoning, and crispy glass noodles stacked in a pyramid. Tom noticed that their hosts were eating macaroni cheese instead. "Didn't fancy the steak?" he asked. Emma shook her head. "Oh, we're vegetarians," she explained, "but we didn't want to limit what we made for you." "How thoughtful," said Margaret in her clipped, insincere manner. Dessert, an apple sorbet and vanilla ice cream concoction, was served in cut-open tennis balls, served into a square of astroturf. This made everyone laugh. Well, it was Wimbledon week, after all. All in all, the dinner seemed to go extremely well, and Margaret and Tom even said they'd return the favour and hoped there were no hard feelings about the wall. "Of course not," Emma replied, smiling. Once the neighbours had gone, Emma collapsed in volleys of laughter. Tom was mystified. What was so funny? "Tom, I just served them weeds in a breast milk cheese sauce, steak in brick dust with moss and a dandelion sauce, and dried worms, and crab apple sorbet with breast milk ice cream, served in the tennis balls my nephews whacked into their greenhouse." Tom's expression was priceless. He began to laugh too, until a sudden realization overtook him. I had the starter and the dessert, so I ate your breast milk." Emma nodded, at least having the decency to look mildly ashamed. There was a chance he had taken things to excess. "Wasn't half bad," was Tom's final assessment, before traipsing off to his guitar practice. The end. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing, for those of you who have, and please share this tale if you enjoyed it. Another one will be along shortly, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.